Hey everybody, on here, and give me just a moment to position. As you can see, I'm standing in some snow-baked areas out here. It's a beautiful, crisp 10 to 15 degrees, and wow, it's feeling like a great morning. We have a storm coming in, so it's a bit cloudy here today. But I wanted to get this video out to you, and I had a request to talk a little bit this month about distortions and fears, and particularly in fear. Fear really caught my attention because I thought, wow, so many people are sitting in fear right now. So many people are living in fear and have been for the last year. And that's on every perspective and every side. I think for the most part, there's always a few perspectives and sides that don't hold that, where people are just standing in trust and faith and things like that. But I really wanted to kind of delve into this a little bit, because I think this is really valuable. When we are in this prolonged fear, it starts to immobilize us more and more and more. So the more we come into this fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get sick if I go out. Oh my gosh, I'm going to, be bashed by somebody if I'm not wearing a mask. The fears are getting to be more and more and bigger, and that is coming a lot from division. It's coming a lot from being so absorbed in the material world, and we don't necessarily think of that. And if I kind of turn my head around, it's because there's people walking. We don't necessarily think about that, but it really is. And a lot of times we think, yeah, but I can't make a reasonable explanation for why I'm afraid. I can't seem to make a reasonable connection to what is happening for me, or what the trigger is, or I don't really have a reason to be afraid. And I don't have this reason for this fear, but I'm still feeling it. Well, fear in codes is connected to transformation, and it's connected to death. So a lot of times what happens is we have this unknown factor, and it's really more of the unknown that we're afraid of, because it's almost impossible to be afraid of the known. So fears get magnified the more and more we sit in a space of the unknown. And this is why our mind naturally tries to find pieces of understanding to what's happening. This is why it wants to know what's going on. This is why intel and things like that have become so popular these days, and people are grabbing to every person who they think can tell them the truth. And I'm about to have some visitors here. We have some people walking with their dogs out here, and they're having a lot of fun. So anyways, this is why so many people are searching out these things. They're grasping for anything, even if it's not the truth. And that's where the challenge is because a lot of times when we're dealing with things that aren't the truth, then we will remain in this space of fear. And I kind of look at fear in codes. It can sometimes connect a lot to the abyss. So the abyss is, that kind of limbo space. The abyss is an aspect of searching for wisdom, searching for love, searching for joy. We're feeling absent of that, and that really fits into the codes of fear, because fear is really about trying to help us connect with prosperity. It's showing us where we have gotten disconnected. It's showing us where we have gotten kind of off track, where we've lost our focus to a certain extent. But it's also a powerful motivator. It's a powerful motivator to get us thinking about, are we standing in our prosperous self? Are we standing in our true wealth? And are we facing the unknown? Are we embracing it, and are we facing it? And I think this is really, really powerful, because part of fear says you've got to have trust. You've got to have some sort of faith. You've got to have some sort of hope. And so it drives us in. And out of fear, what's very interesting is that we will tap into, once we are allowing ourselves to embrace the process, embrace what's going on, to find our confidence, we then can unfold the wisdom of what's happening. And once we unfold that wisdom of what's happening, it's not so much about knowing the destination or knowing what's going to happen next, but the wisdom calls us to take the journey. The wisdom is saying, this is a critical point in your life, and not everything can move forward with you. And that's scary for a lot of people. That's part of where fear comes from, right? Is because we don't know what is going to leave our life and what isn't. So a lot of people say, well, how do I stay out of the space of fear? How do I stay out of these distortions? Because fear is a distortion. And yes, a lot of times I talk about fear being a sign that we're in distortion. Like anything, we could take any distortion space and we can turn it around. We can take any piece and shift that energy. And even though we have some things that will come to an end in those situations where we have fear, we also are under this beautiful, amazing transformation process. And that becomes the key. Are we going to embrace transforming things? Are we willing to take the step? And this step of transformation is usually connected to our soul or our spirit. It's connected to the God energy. And it's a call to say, look, you're going to have to choose. You're going to have to choose to keep facing challenge after challenge, trial after trial, tribulation after tribulation. You're going to have to keep remaining in the abyss. You're going to have to keep wandering around. Or you need to choose God energy. And that applies to every religion. That's not just a traditional religious word. When I use the word God, that's a really powerful presence. That's our omnipresence. That's our energy that is everything that we are. That's where we're united. And that's part of why the God energy is so powerful, is the unity factor that is involved. And when we look at unity, unity is what pulls us out of the fear spaces. It's what pulls us out of the abyss. And that unity is particularly with unconditional love and with compassion. And that sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so simple to say, oh, well, all you got to do is unify with love, and that's it. And when we talk about unifying with love, that is unifying with our soul self. That's unifying with the God energy. And that really, truly does pull us through anything and everything that is out there. But when we're in this abyss situation, we want to take a look at things. What are the relationships that we're having? What are the relationships that we're trying to hold on to in our life that maybe have gone as far as they can? And that doesn't mean that we don't love the person. That doesn't mean that we don't care about them or care what happens to them, because usually we do. But it may simply be a point where our paths are going in different directions. And that's okay, because sometimes people are only supposed to go a certain way with, a certain distance with us, or a certain part of our life. Not everybody is supposed to be in our life for our entire life. And we know, being in a human incarnation, there will be the physical aspect of death that comes around. And we're in times that the change that's happening, the things that are happening in our world, can bring a lot of death to us. And that's something that a lot of people have been challenged by. Those that have lost people, they've been challenged by that. And yet death is such a beautiful process. It's such a freeing process. So it's when we come into this unity with divine presence that we, and of course that can happen in many ways, right? That can happen through our mindset, that can happen through our actions, that can happen through physical death, that can happen in a lot of ways that we come into unity with that divine energy, that God energy. that's where we're going to find the peace. And I think that's what's unsettling for a lot of people is they feel so much turbulence. And a lot of times, yes, the trials and the tribulations and all of that stuff, it's designed to interrupt our peace. It's designed to keep us from making the breakthroughs that we're making. So the key is not to really avoid fear. It's not to run away from it. It's not to be afraid of it, in essence, as silly as that sounds. It's not. It's really about embracing the process. It's really about delving into your fear and understanding it and taking a deep look and saying, why does this scare me? If I know leaving here is going to take me to a beautiful space, why would I ever be afraid of dying? This is an opportunity. What am I resisting? What opportunity am I resisting? And why do I need to know everything? I don't need to know everything. And what I need to do is to simply look at what operates in divine wisdom. Where's the truth in the situation? Do some personal processing when you have fear come up and really embrace that processing, really embrace it and take a look and say, okay, so where am I standing in lies and where am I standing in truth? Where am I holding healthy relationships and where am I holding unhealthy relationships? Where am I holding on to something that needs to be let go of? And why does it scare me to let go of it? Why? What's the trigger here? When we start to ask these questions, then we start to get answers and we start to realize that it's not so much about understanding what's going to happen as it is understanding who you are. Who you are, who's your divine self. It's about coming in confidence, hope, faith, love, trust, compassion, to realize that you can deal with anything that comes up regardless of the resources that you have available to you. You will find a way, and Jessie proved that over and over again in her journeys, that when the going gets tough, it's amazing the wisdom that comes through. It's amazing the core truths that you get in touch with in that process and start to realize, okay, this is important, that's not important. It's just like when she had to pare down to be in the vehicle or other things. It's like, okay, this is what's important. What's important is clothing on my back, blankets to stay warm in winter in the vehicle, the basics. You get down to the basics, pare things down to the basics. That's going to make a big difference for getting out of fear. And again, when you come into these aspects, one of the ways that we move through and transform something and embrace what is waiting for us on the other side, and if you come to realize that what's waiting for you on the other side is greater peace, it's something beautiful, then you realize you have nothing to fear either in that process. But one of the easiest ways to do it that is bringing us all these different components together, the unity and everything together, is to invite divine presence into the situation. And people say, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know. How do I invite divine presence in? And first of all, you have to realize that you are divine presence. You are the God energy. And some people think, oh, isn't that an egotistical thing? You know what, that's kind of a lie in and of itself, because no, it's not an egotistical thing. If you walk around thinking you're superior to everybody, that's pretty egotistical thing. But when you embrace your God energy and you realize that that's what you are, that's really what you are, you're just in this human shell aspect, then, automatically you're owning the truth of who you are. And that's not egotistical. That lie came up because those that didn't want us to remember or to connect with who we really are started calling it egotistical. And who calls those things egotistical? It's the people who are not connected. It's the people who want to be superior and are not realizing and embracing their own God essence. Because when you embrace your own God essence, it's not an ego thing, it's a compassion thing. You live in compassionate ways. So first of all, recognizing that you are that, and that no matter what you have, bring your confidence in. No matter what you have, you can get through this because you are that energy. And one way or another, it's not a bad thing. Death is not something to fear, even if that is the so-called worst-case scenario in a human existence. There's a whole beauty in that. That aside, we can bring divine presence into any situation with our thoughts. We can bring it in by thinking loving thoughts. Instead of hating somebody for what they're doing, we can love them for the fear they're in. We don't have to say that to them. We don't have to bestow pity on them. We don't need to do any of that. We can invite, through even sort of a prayerful aspect, the divine presence in and say, look, I'm feeling a little lost right now. My human self is feeling lost right now. I'm feeling like I'm trying to find answers, and what I really need to connect with is truth and wisdom and my own authenticity. And when I come back into that space, then I can look at it and I open this beautiful invitation up, this beautiful door up, and I simply say, look, please bring divine essence into this situation. That very request, please bring God into this situation. Please let God handle this. And what are we doing? We're not saying that we're inadequate in this situation. What we're saying is, I want the wisest, most omnipotent energy to handle this situation, because right now I'm coming from kind of a human self aspect, and I'm not able to realize that in myself at the moment. So I want to invite that energy in. So by doing this, simply say, please, God, enter this situation. Please, I'm inviting in divine essence to this situation. And when we do that, it starts to clear everything up. It starts to show us the way. It starts to open the doors. It starts to get rid of the confusion. It clears out the lies for us. And then when we look at actions, our actions come down to operating in divine presence. And how do we operate in divine presence? Well, we do that through kindness, through compassion, through realizing I don't need to go out and bash people. When somebody confronts me, I don't need to automatically assume that they don't know the truth about something, and that doesn't even matter necessarily whether they do or not, because the truth is always going to unfold. But it's simply about standing my ground. It's simply about honoring who I am, standing in my own authenticity. And, there's no, authenticity, I've brought it up a couple of times, there's no particular way. And that's another thing, is it's not that that's one format or one specific prayer or one specific thing. It's a heartfelt energy. It's a desire to be kind to other people, regardless of whether they share a different opinion or not. It's about bringing in the kindness. And that starts with each person. And I'll tell you, especially in these days and times, people are so blown away by kindness and compassion that their hate can't even exist in that. I mean, I went into a store, and those of you that know me know I can't wear a mask. I have a lot of medical conditions in my body that I deal with. I can't wear the face shields, any of those things, because of a variety of issues. And I was in the store about a week ago, and the manager came up to me, and they were all ready for this fight. They were all ready for this fight. And I stepped back and I simply said, I get where you're coming from. And I do have a medical issue. I'm not able to wear a mask. And, really, who doesn't these days, if you want to get down to it? But that's a whole nother, we'll save that for the Connecting Codes channel. That's more of that information. And they said, well, did the people at the door ask you? And I said, yes, they did. And I said, they did their job. They did everything they were supposed to do. So your liability is clear, but I simply cannot, wear one because of medical issues and medical exemptions. And this person didn't even know what to say. They said, well, so many people come in and they want to tell me this and they want to tell me that, and they don't understand that I can be fired, and my company will fine me $3,000 or $4,000 fines. Well, yeah, we can go down whole spirals in that, and I'm not here to do that. What I'm here to point out with this is that a little bit of kindness goes a long ways. And right now, here and today, a little bit of kindness and a little bit of compassion, it takes far less for it to make an impact because of where we're at. And we are in times that we need to unify through spirit, because all of these issues that we're arguing about in the world are holding us in fear, and they're holding us in this separation. And we don't have to agree on everything to come into unity. We don't have to agree on things to be nice to one another, or to operate in compassion or kindness. And this is what moves us through the fear. So sit there and embrace the process. Dig deeper. Why is this a trigger for me? Why does this matter? Yes, that may be an important issue. But that aside, when we get down to the whole piece of things, what's really important? It's standing in our soul self. And we need to learn to differentiate a bit between where we're going down those paths. And there are some very fine lines, and it takes practice, and it takes learning, and it takes experiencing things. But fear can be a beautiful journey if you let it. It's going to push you to your limits. You're going to feel like you're going to break down. But use it as a sign. Use it as a symbol to bring yourself into awareness, to say, oh, okay, this is something I need to pay attention to. This is an opportunity for me. What is real for me? What's important to me? I don't need to follow everybody else's format. And how do I face this in the way that's going to work for me? So those are my key points, that those are the key pieces, and they're incredible pieces to work with. And you don't have to have anything, you don't have to buy anything, you don't have to remember anything. If you simply can focus on being in your divine essence, if you can simply focus on being your real self, coming back around and saying, you know what, none of this is important. None of this that is here is important. What is important is that I hold spirit, that I allow myself to be a vessel for that. And if I'm going to continue to be that vessel, then that's the path that I choose. And whatever goes with me on that journey, great. And whatever doesn't go with me on my journey, that's okay. That's okay too. So with that, I thank you for listening. I thank you for tuning in here. And I will be coming back to you next month with another topic. And who knows, it might even be a little over 10 degrees next month. Take care, everybody. Mm-hmm.